Hello and welcome to another episode of My Dinner with Gabe. I'm Gabe Van Handel.
I'm Zav the Play.
And this is My Dinner with Gabe. And we are going over another week of movie news, of box office news, and current releases in the movie cinema for you, because we go through it all so you don't have to. So we break it all down in an hour-long show for you to know about everything movie related. So starting this off, we got some movie reviews for you. We got Kristen Peterson in the studio.
Hey guys.
And she's going to talk about, we're going to talk about kids films, children's films, and the children's film program at the Milwaukee Film Festival. And that is what we're going to do this week. But first, let's do what we do every week, a little thing we like to call box office and movie news. So, Zav LaPlay, let's read the top 10 box office last Friday through Monday.
Okay.
14th through the 19th.
You want the gross or whatever it is? The amount that they made? The amount of money they made? Like Resident Evil, Retribution.
Resident Evil was first with da-da-da-da-da-da.
Okay.
Finding Nemo was second with, and if the gross is the same amount as the total, that means it opened.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, so Resident Evil, Retribution. How many Resident Evils have come out so far?
That's the fifth one.
Wow, it's the fifth one. And it made $21 million. Now, is that a lot, Gabe, or is that not
I will
a lot?
explain that when we are done with the chart.
Okay.
Because relatively...
Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Finding Nemo? What is that? Why is it being re-released or something?
Finding Nemo was a huge film that was the blockbuster of 2003, and Disney is just re-releasing it now.
So it's just being re-released
in 3D.
In theaters,
yes.
Not on DVD.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that one made $16 million. The Possession, $5 million. Lawless made $4.3 million.
And that's fourth?
Oh, yeah, that's fourth. Lawless. Okay. In its third week, actually. It's actually made third. These are in their third week, the last two, Possession and Lawless. Expendables 2 is in its fifth week. It's made $80 million so far, but it made $3 million this week. Paranormal made $3 million in its fifth week. The Words made $2.8 million in its second week. Born Legacy made $2.85 million in its sixth week. The Odd Life of Timothy Green made $2.6 million in its fifth week, and The Campaign made $2.42 million in its sixth week.
So, what that meant. Now, Resident Evil 5 did good, but this is the second worst weekend of the year so far. The box office has just been slumping the past month. Record low numbers for the past 4 years. So Resident Evil 5 did okay, but really disappointing by the series standards. The second lowest grossing in the series besides Resident Evil 1, which grossed $17.7 million.
Are you a fan of Resident Evil?
I am not at all. The first one had some moments of weird cathartic artfulness, and some really strange moments of like this surreal, dirty beauty. Yeah. But other than that, no, they're pretty bad movies. They're pretty bad, bottom of the barrel, special effects ridden horror films with just unentertaining violence. If you're going to be loaded with violence, at least entertain me and have some sort of a wit about your stupidity. It's just literally, it's stupid and violent without any sort of knowingness, any sort of tongue in cheek.
What about you, Kristen? Have you seen the Resident Evil movies?
None of them.
None of them. Yeah, me neither.
So
I mean, I've probably seen bits and pieces, but I haven't seen them officially.
She's pretty.
She is really pretty.
Yeah.
Mia Jovovich. So of the sequels and reboots since May, only 3 of all series, only 3 of 10 have done better business than their predecessors in any way. The Expendables 2 being a notable disappointment, doing almost $20 million less than its predecessor at this point in its run. The Possession, however, is kicking butt in its place, for doing great numbers for Lionsgate. After having 2 unexpected weeks at number 1 and a strong second week at number 1, it only fell 40% in its third week. Now, this is a surprise, because this is a PG-13 horror film, which usually just drops off the radar in its second week, usually 60% or more. But this film has stayed strong, and it hasn't had strong reviews on its site. It hasn't had a strong cinema score, and it hasn't had a strong marketing campaign. This is a movie that just seems to have had a secret word-of-mouth campaign behind it, or people just seem to just have nothing else to go to. The Words has only grossed 9.1 in 2 weekends 10 days. And this is just a pathetic feat for a pathetic movie. Arbitrage and The Master are where it's at for limited release this week, and I'll get to that. Arbitrage played in under 200 locations and pulled in $2 million with a strong 10,163 per theater average. That's pretty strong. However, on the opposite side of that, Last Ounce of Courage, that conservative right-wing religious movie that we talked about last week, actually ran commercials in major markets, which is unusual for a religious-themed movie like this. And Christian films usually rely on word of mouth, especially in major markets like LA, Los Angeles, Toronto, Dallas, and Houston, Chicago. But they really were trying to push this to be a huge Christian opening. However, it's a pretty big financial failure. $1.5 million in over 1,409 locations. Pretty terrible. Now, The Master. Here's a record. A record highest per theater average of 147,000 per theater average, which beats Moonrise Kingdom's per theater average of 130,000. Which was already a huge feat. So unlike the slow building campaign that's usually surrounding these studio-based independents, like movies released by Sony Pictures Classics or Fox Searchlight or Fine Line Features, they're just going out this week. This movie only played in its first weekend in 5 theaters because they know that anything P.T. Anderson is releasing is just going to have a huge word of mouth behind it, that people are going to go see this no matter what. So instead of doing the slow build where they go from 200 theaters to 300 theaters to 400, they're just releasing this film. They're unleashing it from the cage. 600 plus locations this week, as it is playing in Milwaukee this week at the Oriental. Highly anticipated, highly awesome, most likely. And in fact, we have someone in the studio who saw it, who hopefully can give us a brief synopsis and a brief review of it later. But that's coming up. Now, Mr. Savlaplay, let's go to Rotten Tomatoes to get a synopsis of the upcoming releases for today. And there's an unexpectedly awesome release of Dread 3D, which got awesomely awesome good reviews, which I was seriously, secretly hoping for. But let's get to that. What's the synopsis of this film, Dread 3D?
Oh, you caught me off guard there. It is a future. It's the future in America. The future America is an irradiated wasteland. On the East Coast, running from Boston to Washington, D.C., lies Mega City 1, a vast, violent metropolis where criminals rule the chaotic streets. The only force of order lies with the urban cops called judges, who possess the combined powers of judge, jury, and instant executioner. Known and feared throughout the city, Dread, played by Carl Urban, is the ultimate judge, challenged with ridding the city of its latest scourge, a dangerous drug epidemic.
Yeah.
That sounds so uninteresting.
It sounds so uninteresting, but the trailer is actually pretty awesome.
It just sounds so typical.
It does.
It just sounds like such a typical plot.
It really does. But
like Escape from New York or something.
But what makes it unique is... I'll read the critical breakdown of it. Here's the fact. Oh, shoot. Is the fact that... Fueled by bombastic violence and impressive special effects, it's rooted in self-satire and deadpan humor. Is a rare example of a remake that works. Now, here's some quotes that I actually read from reviews from my favorite critics. It's beautiful. It's smoky with a neon dark, Blade Runner-esque, self-satiristic, loyal to the vicious, violent comic attitude. It's smartly paced, a futuristic take on Die Hard and the Raid Redemption of sorts. It is low on morals or meaning, but that doesn't stop it from being comic and high concept. And I'm sorry, anyone who's seen the trailer who loves just a badass action film, there's a scene where it shows the people smoking this futuristic drug called slow-mo. It's the first movie of the new year that I'm actually excited to see in 3D because of this. It does look beautiful, and I was hoping it got good reviews. It was a 1 in 10, and it kicked 1 into 10.
Wow.
So, House at the End of the Street, which was not screened for critics, but a few jumped in there. That's usually a bad sign. What did they have to say about this terrible movie?
Okay, well, let me see. It's got very few reviews at all. Seeking a fresh start, a newly divorced Sarah, played by Elizabeth Shue, and her daughter Alyssa, played by Jennifer Lawrence, find the house of their dreams in a small, upscale, rural town. But when the startling and unexplainable events begin to happen, Sarah and Alyssa learn the town is in the shadows of a chilling secret. Years later, in the house next door, a daughter killed her parents. Years earlier, killed her parents in their beds and disappeared, leaving only a brother.
So this movie was not screened for critics, which you can guess what that means. And it's PG-13 horror, which you can guess what that usually means too.
So when you say that, does that mean that the theaters just don't have a
No, it means that
pre-screening?
No,
for,
it means
press screenings?
It means that the company that's releasing it intentionally did not screen it for critics.
But what do? They send critics copies of it, or they do press screening?
They do it multiple ways. They have a press screening, and sometimes for other critics, they send press screen copies. When a movie does not have a press campaign for it, it means that it's a film that they've probably had shelved for a while, and they know it's terrible. Because they know that...
Or do they just know critics aren't going to do...
They're going to slaughter
any justice?
They're going to slaughter it, yeah.
Okay.
So that's when a movie is not screened for critics...
But it's true. If you look at the audience rating, it's not so bad. But
never go with the audience rating. It's never a fair judge, because like the people that want to go see a PG-13 horror film in the first place are not the type of people that want to go see The Master.
Or, like you said earlier, there's nothing better to see, and they just want to see a movie.
Yeah. The audience rating literally has literally the worst reviewed film of the year, 1,000 words, which was literally 0%. Eddie Murphy's worst reviewed film of all time, one of the worst reviewed comedies of all time, had an 86% audience reviewed liking. I've talked to people who've seen it. I haven't met one person who could make it more than 20 minutes into the film.
Oh, wow.
Yet it made an 86% audience rating.
Yeah.
So like the audience rating literally has like almost no.
And the audience ratings that we're looking at here
are people that liked the movie.
These are online ratings, you think?
These are people that went to go see the movie and liked the movie, so they bothered to hit that they liked it online. People that didn't like the movie don't bother to hit the audience.
Well, sometimes they might want to like say how terrible it is or how much they hate it. I would think.
It's
there must
rare.
be some people out there.
Somewhat, but there's it's like people who do user ratings on IMDb.
Yeah.
They're not people with credible, taste usually. And Amazon.com, people who write the reviews, their grammar is bad, their taste is usually pretty terrible, and they're not credible sources usually. And
I write reviews. No, I'm just kidding. I actually don't, but
if you're a top 1,000 reviewer on Amazon, that's a whole different story. But most reviews that are written on like things like that are on Rotten Tomatoes by user critics are usually pretty. Anyway, House at the End of the Street, that's my synopsis. PG-13 horror, not screened for critics. I didn't even bother to catch up for it today when I found out that a few critics had bothered to go see it themselves and paid for their own ticket. Next, End of Watch, which I am kind of excited for.
Well, this one has a pretty high rating, 85%. It's from the writer of Training Day. End of Watch is a riveting action thriller that puts audiences at the center of the chase like never before. Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena star as young LA police officers who discover a secret that makes them the target of the country's most dangerous drug cartel.
So, here's a movie that is basically driven by visual storytelling, and it's a really heartfelt tale of two beat cops, and it has genuine character and plot excitement as well as sensitivity and thoughtful development throughout. There's a raw, natural feel of the two leads that creates a really, really dark, adrenaline-fueled humor and grace that is powerfully offset by loads of violent realism and intense, shaky camera work that actually works and isn't distracting. This is a film that takes one of the point of view camera following gimmicks that's been overdone and overused to death, and because of the strong performances, the strong acting, and the strong writing, and the naturalism, and the likability of the two leads, it's a film that actually ends up becoming touching and very believable from what I've been reading. I wasn't sure where this movie was going to go. The trailer looked a little hokey, looked a little bit more guiding towards mainstream audiences, so it could have gone either way. But I'm really, really glad to hear that this film is thoughtful and intelligent, and also a kick-ass action film. film.
Do you think you're going to go see it in theaters?
I'll probably see it on video, but I'm really glad that it's good. I'm glad that it's an intelligent, thoughtful movie because it could have gone either way. It could have been really crappy, and it probably would have made just as much money.
Okay, so moving right along.
One more movie.
One more?
Trouble with the Curve, the new Clint Eastwood and Amy Adams movie.
Oh, you're gonna jump past The Master?
Well, we did that last week. Remember?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm,
And then after that, we have a guest on the show who saw The Master tonight, who can give us a brief.
Kristen can tell us. Okay, so Trouble with the Curve. Gus Lobel, played by Clint Eastwood, has been one of the best scouts in baseball for decades, but despite his efforts to hide it, age is starting to catch up with him. Nevertheless, Gus, who can tell a pitch just by the crack of the bat, refuses to be benched for what may be the final innings of his career. So
Amy Adams, what ends up happening is that he goes on a final scouting mission, and Amy Adams is his estranged daughter, and he's the grungy old man. Basically the same character he played in Gran Torino and in $1 Million Baby. However, this is a lovable, likable character, and Clint Eastwood is just so damn watchable on screen, both in his early days, both on Rawhide, and in his old age as a crotchety old man, which he's now being typecast in. As a director, he's continuously challenging. He's continuously artistic. He's bold. And even though he's an arch conservative, he makes really, really wild decisions. He lets his characters make wild decisions that he would not personally endorse in real life. I find him like a challenging, wonderful person, and I find his performances gutsy and brave, even in predictable bad movies. What I've been reading about this movie is that even though it's predictable, a little bit sappy, a little bit obvious, great performances and charisma between Amy Adams and Eastwood, even if it is a story beyond, even if the story is beyond preposterous and predictable, it's a winning home run slice.
Well, it's got pretty bad reviews. But, well, not great reviews.
It's got a fair amount of 1.5 and 2-star reviews, but I did read a fair amount of like high 2.5s, high 3 stars. And Ebert gave it a really good review. He said, this is a 2-star film, but I'm giving it 3 stars because it's so damn earnest and likable. And there's a lot of profound moments in it that even though like the plot points of this film are really obvious, they're just, you can see them a mile away, they're really touching and really loving. It's a great Eastwood film is what I've been reading. A movie for dads. And that is your box office news, except the movie that we covered last week, but we have not reviewed yet. The two of us, we have a guest reviewer. We have Kristen Peterson in the studio. She's going to tell us about what she thought of The Master, which she saw tonight.
Yeah, and we're going to watch The Master
next week.
Even though we're going to also have our benefit during our show next week. So we'll have to pre-record it.
Yep.
We'll pre-record our show.
We'll figure it out.
So we'll figure out how to watch. We'll have to watch The Master and then review it.
We're gangster as hell.
Record it. Maybe on Thursday we'll record it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what'd you think? You just saw it, right? You just were at The Master. Where'd you go see it? What theater?
Oriental Theater.
At the Oriental.
Main room, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I will say that I had to go to the bathroom since the beginning of the film, and I'm pretty sure irreparable damages have been done to my bladder.
So you didn't.
Nope, I
you
did
couldn't.
not cave.
You couldn't pull yourself away.
No, it was amazing.
Oh wow, you were that hooked.
Yeah, well, I'm also a P.T. Anderson.
P.T. Anderson. Sorry.
Oh boy. Do you want like a synopsis, a brief?
Not really. We went over the synopsis last week. It's kind of a take on what's his name, on L. Ron Hubbard-esque type cult in the 1950s. But what did you think of the movie? What did P.T. do? And what has he done? And what has he brought to the screen since his long-awaited hiatus since 2007's decade-bursting There Will Be Blood?
Well, I'm glad that he's, with every film he has a different color palette and it's really stylized. But this, I wouldn't say it's less stylized. It's just there's desert, there's ocean, there's a yacht. Like he had a lot more variety in his colors and his aesthetic. So that. Just knowing him very well, I was really excited about that. That's my biggest criticism is like There Will Be Blood was really brown and grungy, which is good for the film. But so that was great. And the performances were varied so much. And it didn't feel like another one of his stories. It just it was a new story. And Amy Adams, first time I was ever really taken away by her. Like she's great as that princess in that one Cinderella movie or whatever.
Enchanted, which I love.
I love that movie too. But yes, she was amazing. So I'm very pleased.
So you liked it. You enjoyed it.
I probably won't watch it again for 3 years, but I will be thinking about it for a very long time.
A powerful, thought-provoking film, essential, like a culturally astute movie, would you say?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the one thing I'm taking away from it, is that he discusses topics that none of us really critically think about, and we need to.
That's what he's really good at. I think
Yeah.
he sees what makes us and what destroys us,
Yeah.
and what binds us and what can unravel us as people. I mean, he might be like the filmmaker of the people of the 90s, the 80s, and now. And even though and what I think is fascinating is that these movies lately, these last couple of films have taken place in other time periods. Boogie Nights takes place in the 70s. There Will Be Blood takes place in the Depression era, and this movie takes place in the 50s. Yet, what I've been reading about this film is that they're more contemporary than ever.
Yes.
And I mean, There Will Be Blood is what was a precursor to the financial meltdown of 2008. And I mean, talk about a film about greed, wealth, and the violence of money. So I think this film is probably going to be a precursor as well, a premonition.
Like a spiritual.
Wow.
Did you feel that way?
Form.
Did you feel like it was sort of telling a tale to
Yeah.
sort of a tale to society?
The two main characters that like the Philip Seymour Hoffman and the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Those two characters were amazing because it keeps switching, like who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, who would you rather be, and both of them are, like, just like a great movie, both of them you really don't know if you would ever want to be them, but it still makes you think about who you value as a human being in our culture. Would you value the drunk? Would you value the guy who makes up a religion? Like, the righteousness was talked about a lot in this film. So that's cool.
Wow.
Especially with women, there's a lot of righteousness problems with women as well, which I think is a really big topic in America right now.
Control of women too.
In what sense?
Yeah.
Wow.
For women?
Yeah. What's the...
Well, like just the motherhood versus career idea, like which woman is more righteous, the woman who has a very like awesome career, who people really respect culturally, or the woman who does things thanklessly and has done things thanklessly for her children and her husband and stuff. Like, it's just that. And like the wife of Philip Seymour Hoffman, Amy Adams, she was very curiously more powerful than him in I don't want to get into it, but it's just it's really interesting. Righteousness.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Me too. Again.
Okay, well, so are we moving on to the next
Children's.
The next thing?
Yep.
Children's films. Okay, so you've been working, how long have you been working on getting together the children's, you're part of a group of people who are working on that aspect of the Milwaukee Film Festival, right?
Yeah, there's like the education committee, and then the education director, Susan Kearns. They've been working on it for many years. I think this is the second year the Children's Fest is full swing. But I started helping her out as her Children's Fest intern in February or maybe March.
Okay.
So we've been working pretty nonstop.
Yeah, almost
then.
a half a year or something like that.
Yeah, about.
And how is it screening? Is it showing at the Oriental or is it showing in different venues?
Yeah, all three venues that the film festival has for our films. It's screening at those. Usually just the weekends in the afternoon times.
And they're geared towards, well, children obviously, but children and adults sort of, or?
Yeah, I would say that all of the films, except for maybe the all ages film, is for adults more so. Like they're just gorgeous films with great themes.
Okay, well, so can we go over them? Maybe talk
yeah.
about some of the films that that really stand out for you?
Yeah, the all ages film is Alfie the werewolf, the little werewolf. It's I think it's perfect for being screened in the first part of August or October because it's about a little werewolf, a little boy who turns into a werewolf. And it's about like adoption and like who are my real parents and that type of stuff. So it's Halloween and it's kind of heartfelt.
Is it a live action film?
Yeah.
Okay. And where was it made? Is it
Germany, I believe.
Oh, it's a German film?
Dutch with
Dutch.
English subtitles. Yep.
English subtitles. So what about younger children? They probably wouldn't be able to watch it because they can't read.
They can watch it. We have 4 or 5 actors coming in to read all the subtitles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
During the screening?
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're doing that same thing. I don't know if we have actors coming in, but people in the committees or in the film festival are gonna be reading subtitles for the short films.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for the younger, like under age 3 kids.
Have you seen that done before? Is it?
No,
Uh-huh.
I believe, I really shouldn't quote this, but I believe the Chicago Children's Fest did that, and that's where, like that was a great idea, but it's very rare for subtitles to be read.
Yeah. It seems like it could be hit or miss. I don't know which way, if it's how that would work, but
we're excited to screen Alfie, especially because it's a really, really fun movie, and we were leery about it because of the subtitles.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to be a really great experience, because I don't think kids will have the same experience the rest of their life.
Oh, really?
Having subtitles read and an international
Oh,
film
that way.
and-
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay, so Alfie is one, and then what are some other ones that really stand out for you?
One that I cannot wait to see again, I've already seen it twice, is Tales of the Night. It's by Michel Osalo, who also did this great film that we screened last year. It's just, the animation is something like I've never seen before. It's silhouetted, the characters are silhouetted, and the backgrounds are so vibrant. It's beautiful, and there's probably like 12 little fables that it goes through. Really awesome short fables.
Is it silhouetted like cutouts, silhouette
Yep.
cutouts? I see.
Really cool.
This and the fables that are in that film are like very, very, very universal. They're like they're like universal children's stories from around the world that have kind of been retold in different ways, but stories that American kids will be familiar with in one way or another.
Yeah, like if the fruit is not an apple, it's a lemon, or
Sure.
like it's interchangeable, which is great. And every single continent, I would say, is represented. Like there's African fables, there's French fables, there's like everywhere is represented. So I love that part of it too.
Awesome.
And they have accents, and somehow it teaches you like costumes from different ages, and it's really cool.
It's a long, full length, or what
Yep.
length film? A feature
It's
length?
full length, feature length, ages 10 and up. That's great. And besides the shorts programs, which are great, like they're around an hour long each, with 10 or so short films in them. All of them are beautiful. They range from dramas to comedies to animations to like documentaries. There's this really great documentary from Africa about this boy who uses a photo fish or a fish to help his grandma. That is a really great documentary. Yeah, and there's another film, but what I'm really, really excited about is The Princess Bride's 25th anniversary 35mm screening.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I bet a lot of people will want to
It's
see that.
going to be great. And John Axford, the brewer, is presenting it, so...
Oh, he's a brewer, a baseball player.
Yeah,
Oh.
he went to film school.
Mustache.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, stash. So that's going to be so cool. My parents are coming down for it.
Sweet. That's actually on my list of the movies as a child that I loved. I was going to talk about that. Sweet. Now we'll be double dipping.
Good.
So how did you get involved in this? I mean, you became an intern, but what got you there? What got you from just...
Oh, that's hard to say. I moved to Milwaukee not 2 years ago as a psych major, a child psych major.
Oh, okay.
And then I started just helping friends out with their films every weekend, and it turned out that that's all I really wanted to do.
Oh, you were helping film students or
Yeah,
filmmakers
seniors in the program, just like
at
holding a
UWM?
boom. Yeah,
Sure.
holding a boom or like doing makeup or something that they need help with. And then I switched to journalism documentary because I realized filmmaking is what I wanted to do. And I'm more of like a documentary type person than a fiction, even though I love making fiction films. But so just it escalated. I took a few film courses, started meeting some really great young filmmakers. And then I had this great professor, Tate Bunker, who suggested that I talk to Susan Kearns and apply for the film festival, and it happened. And I love it. Even though sometimes it's like spreadsheets and emails, I just something about the atmosphere and them, like the staff. All of them are great people, so it's a great place to be.
Wow.
Wow, that sounds great.
Neato. So, what exactly? How many films are included in the children's program altogether?
Altogether, including the shorts, I do not know the number, but the feature-length films.
Features, yeah, I guess would be.
There's 4.
Okay.
Altogether. That's excluding the education screenings that we're doing in the mornings during the week for elementary to high school students, MPS or not. I think there's only 2 more films that we're screening for those, and that's a really great opportunity too. It's $1 per student to come and watch these great international films with their class. So we also do that with the Children's Fest.
So that's separate. Those screenings are only for students from MPS, or okay,
or non-MPS, yeah. The students.
Oh, for students only. Okay.
In the morning.
And when's the first screening? How long does it last? When does the children's aspect of the film festival begin?
It gets kicked off with every other film. I don't believe that the first day has a children's film, but it's
pretty much
with all of the other parts of the festival.
Okay. Cool. Well, it sounds good, and I'll try to come check some of it out if I can get myself out of bed early enough.
I would highly suggest seeing Tales of the Night, and then the feature film Le Tableau. If you're really into art, or not necessarily in art, just like if you know a little bit about art, I think that you'll love this film. It's full of information about that stuff.
Cool.
Sounds like it's up your alley, Tom.
What's that? Art?
Yeah. So,
okay.
Now, the second part of this children's program that we were going to talk about is in coordination with that. We were going to discuss 2 things. One, movies as children that affected us to watch movies, to be in love with movies, to see movies differently. And they don't necessarily have to be children's films, but also children's films throughout our lives that have affected us, that have changed the way we look at the world. And I'd say that both have had a profound effect on me, and both have happened to be children's films, and coincidentally, and others not so coincidentally. So, Kristen, I guess, would you like to start? Films maybe as a child that affected you, that aren't necessarily children's films, but movies as a child that just, like, bam.
I know my answer immediately.
Yeah?
I know Mel Gibson's not the coolest these days, but I memorized Hamlet, Mel Gibson's Hamlet, every single line because I watched it so much, as well as Braveheart and The Patriot. I would just, those 3. I memorized every single monologue, and that is what made me want to get into theater and acting and films, I'm pretty sure. Can't get enough of Mel Gibson's performances.
Still to this day?
I believe so.
Have you seen The Beaver?
No.
Okay.
Haven't even heard of it.
It's a movie that was directed by Jodie Foster. This was she directed it before his second nervous breakdown recently, depicted in Joe Esterhazy's recent tell-all book, Heaven and Mel, which depicts his complete nervous breakdown before, like, this was after the screaming about Jews outside of the car rant to the police officer, but before he left all those messages on his ex-wife's voicemail.
Okay.
This was a film that he was in because Jodie Foster and him are publicly very good friends. It's a film where he's a psychologically damaged person who has post-traumatic stress disorder and can only communicate through a beaver hand puppet. And it was a mainstream film release, and it's very strange, and it's very similar to Jodie Foster's style of direction with Little Man Tate. Very similar.
Have you seen Home for the Holidays?
Home for the Holidays. Yes, very dark, very strange movie.
Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster directed that too.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable and very dark.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't see it as dark or uncomfortable at
Oh,
all.
it's very dark. That coat that she has to wear through that whole film,
That's just
it's very dark.
horrifying.
I thought it was a dark film, and I thought it showed the underbelly of sibling relationships too,
yeah.
which I thought was very real gritty and realistic. I liked it even as a third grader when I saw it. I liked it. I thought it was very.
I watch it like 6 times a year.
Wow.
You watch it
Home
6 times a year?
Can't get
Wow,
enough.
you're a real avid film watcher. Like
Yes.
you watch a
Wow.
movie, you really watch it.
Oh yeah.
You take it in.
Every time I see that film, I see something new.
So Mel Gibson movies.
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't really rewatched those, but
That's pretty awesome though. That's pretty awesome.
I remember as Hamlet when I was 10 or 12. That's pretty cool.
That is
Don't
kind of
remember
amazing.
any of the words now.
That's an amazing version of Hamlet too, because that's a really dark, stark, realist,
He does it zanier, less depressed. I loved it.
wild-eyed,
Yeah.
manic.
Huh.
It's a really good version of it too, because a lot of it's shot on location in these very strange gray brownish locations.
Yeah.
Ophelia drowning herself is the best.
Helena Bonham Carter.
Is this
What?
great
Oh.
shooting of it? I mean, it's just the angles that they choose for it totally unplay it. It takes it off the stage and it makes it three-dimensional. It's
And it feels like the story is cut in 3 parts, kind of. It's odd.
it's awesome.
And what he does to his mother, I still am confused. Was it sexual?
It kind of is. Okay, he gets in Glenn Close's face, and there's
On
this
her bed.
on her bed, and there's this really dark, really and it's rated PG, but it's a really murky,
Right
dark,
before he stabs Lear.
very sexual scene, and it's very, and the killing of I can't never remember his uncle's name.
Uncle.
The guy who he kills.
Laertes. That's his
Laertes.
uncle? Oh
Not.
my gosh.
I think it's his
His
uncle.
uncle dad?
Who he kills through the curtain.
That's Laertes.
Laertes. That's shot.
Wait, is that Polonius?
I can't
Damn.
remember which one it is, but it's done extremely well. Anyway, so that's your picks for children. You, Mr. Xavier, your picks as a child.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm like, oh, do I have any good picks? I know that my first movie experience sticks out, which is going to Diamonds Are Forever and seeing the volcano open. It's like there's a volcano, and I think it's Diamonds Are Forever.
That's You Only Live Twice.
You only live twice. Okay, sorry. It's okay. I'm terrible with names. Yeah, the volcano opens up at the top, and I remember not being sure whether it was real or not, whether I was like looking at the volcano for real, like we were in a box looking out. Like I couldn't tell really that whether I was watching a movie or reality.
Wow.
How old were you?
I was probably like 3 or 4, maybe
don't
something like
remember.
that.
Everything's like a surrealistic.
That was my
psychedelic
first
dream around
movie
that
going
time in your life.
experience. And then I lost a really important little truck like toy, and I was
Aw.
upset for days, I guess. So that was my first movie going experience, and just remember it being amazing. And actually, I haven't had that many amazing, something comparable. Weirdly enough, one of the more comparable experiences I had was watching Avatar for some reason in 3D.
That's the only 3D film I've enjoyed.
And I don't know why, but I felt like I didn't feel like of course, I knew it was cinema, but I felt like I was looking into the future or something. I really had this bizarre feeling when I watched that film.
Yeah.
And it might have been because I took mushrooms, which I don't do very often, but for some reason. And so it was, but that movie really did have it. The thing is that I watched it with a bunch of other people, and they all seemed like they were amazed by that film. Like it was kind of mind blowing. And then I had conversations with a friend of mine in India, and he was really, really affected by Avatar. And so I felt like there was something kind of profound about that film, even though I'm not a big fan of the director or anything like that. I didn't really like the sort of typical Hollywood narrative about it and all of that. But there was something about that film that was just kind of blew me away, and I can't quite describe it. But that reminded me of the first movie I ever went to, in a way. Wow. So the first movie like that I remember as a kid. The Red Balloon was one that that I remember loving a lot, and I'm not sure who made it. Are you guys familiar with the Red Balloon?
I owned it as a kid.
You owned it as a kid. Yeah, it's a French film. It's very Truffaut-like. It's a short film, and it's all about a boy with a red balloon, and he's just traveling around with this red helium balloon, and kids are trying to like throw rocks at it and destroy it. And I don't know. It's a pretty simple children's film, but it's very well made. It's kind of like a new wave French.
It's definitely
style.
a French new wave.
Yeah, it's like a French new wave children's film. It was really well made, and I think I just identified a lot with it. So that was one that had a lot of influence on me. Bedknobs and Broomsticks was another one that I loved. That was one of those kind of Dick Van Dyke Disney films with
Murder, She Wrote. Jessica Tandy.
Oh yeah, I
Not
think
Jessica
she
Tandy.
was in it.
She
Yeah,
was in it.
I know who you mean. The woman from Murder She Wrote, and probably Don Knotts or something like that.
The guy who played the father in Mary Poppins is in it, along with Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, and it had that
They're the
sort of
two leads.
quasi-British, Britishy American thing about it that you have with a lot of those films. Oh yeah. Also, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang had huge influence on me.
Me too.
And I remember trying to make the fudge recipe from the book. Of course, you read the book and you watch the movie, but that was a movie that really had a profound effect on me. But I think I saw that on TV, not in the movies as much. Even though I also found it boring for some reason. You know.
Me too.
It's
Especially
kind of long and boring.
Half Point.
But still, there was just something kind of really exciting about it. And then I was telling Gabe there was a series of British films on TV when I was young, and they were black and white, and they were very neorealist style films, but I don't know what they were, but they stuck with me as kind of like intelligent films or something that I was just curious, and it kind of gave me a glimpse into the world of the British, like England in the 60s. So those are the films that influenced me the most. And then disaster films. There was, because I grew up in the 70s, like 75 or whatever was when they had all those disaster films, Earthquake, the Airplane series where there's like some horrible thing happening on an airplane. Or no, I guess Airport. Airplane was the spoof on Airport. And those films, anyway, they were pretty. Oh yeah, they caused me to I made a film, or no, I didn't make it, but I wrote a film with some friends called The Bridge, and it was all about a bridge that falls down, and everyone. It was just a disaster film. So like the first film that I ever tried to write in like grade school was a disaster film, because that was all the rage at the time.
I have a children's film mystery. If you guys know, anyone out there in the radio world, if you know this film, it's a bunch of animals that are quilt, like they're made out of quilt material. And there's the plastic strings that you can see, and they're kind of like bopping around, and the landscapes are all made of these quilts as well. And there's one scene where the blue quilt bear, pops cabbages because they're growing too big or they're floating or something. So if you know that film, please let me know, because I need to see it again. It was on VHS.
It sounds surreal.
And it was scary.
414-935-2951 if you know the name of this film.
Please, I'm in need.
You have like 10 minutes to tell us.
So I would say that as a kid, I mean, just to sum it up, I would say that James Bond films, I collected them on VHS. Dick Tracy was the film that captured my imagination cinematically. Colors, in terms of special effects, spectacle, scope, violence, the intensity of a male lead killing people, which has been one of my main cinematic loves ever since, of a great, strong, male, emotionless lead killing people. The Princess Bride as a kid, the movie I've quoted the most in my entire life. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves as a kid. The Star Wars films. The first 2001 in middle school definitely was the film that showed me that there was a different kind of cinema than just entertainment, and it was the first film that opened up my eyes to this whole other idea of filmmaking, of film. But I remember more than anything else, the first movie I can remember watching is Die Hard with my grandpa, who was a World War II vet, who thought I was old enough to watch this when I was 4.
Oh, no.
So Die Hard to this day is still the second greatest action film ever made, maybe the third best. I'd put it right next to The Raid Redemption and Predator. But in terms
Raid Redemption's really had a strong impact on you.
Yeah, I know. I love it. To me, it's just this poetic work of art. But Predator and Die Hard have this symmetry, this great ability to fuse all men together, more than Caddyshack. And Ghostbusters, even more than those two films, they have this ability to bond men and to bond us collectively and to bond people and moviegoers. There's this beauty and there's this artfulness behind Predator, especially in the second half when it turns into a silent film. It's in Die Hard when it turns into a Howard Hawksian screwball comedy in the middle, even though people are being killed and tortured left and right. It's a dialogue-driven comedy.
Now that you mention it, I don't know if
film.
I've ever seen a film where it bonded with men.
Yeah, but so I'd say that those are my influences. But children's films that were intelligent and that went beyond the realms of like what a cute children's film, which to me represents a lot of kids' films that are made. They're just throwawayable children's fare. But Pixar has this ability, and Studio Ghibli has this ability to create these children's films that are these otherworldly. Miyazaki, the filmmaker who created the Studio Ghibli, My Neighbor Totoro, Castle in the Sky, Spirited Away, which are these profound, epic
Arrietty.
films.
Secret World.
Secret World of Arrietty, which Zav and I reviewed on the show, which just blew us away for different reasons.
My Totoro.
My Neighbor Totoro, yep. Castle in the Sky.
Pompoko. What about Pompoko?
Pompoko is amazing. Pig Face. I can't remember. Porco Faso or something. But I'd say other than that, Toy Story 3 is maybe the best film I've ever seen about morality and death, mortality and death, and the cost of living and the choices we make. The Incredibles might be the best film about fidelity and marriage in the modern age. Tangled might be the greatest fable I've ever seen put on film. Enchanted might be the best self-deprecating comedy I've ever watched. Up and Wall-E, these are great films about relationships, about growing old together, about the decisions we make as a couple and as individuals.
Have you seen the red-haired one? What's it called?
Oh, the one Brave or something
Brave.
like that.
Brave is
Amazing.
Brave I have not seen yet, but I've heard it's
It's
amazing.
probably the only film where a mother and daughter are truly depicted.
I've
I will
heard
say that.
the relationship and the dynamic between the mother and the daughter is very realistic from what I've heard. Like
So
amazing.
Amazing. I should see it with my mom.
Absolutely. I really wanted to see it. So what would movies that have touched you? I mean, for you it sounded like The Red Balloon. I mean, it is definitely one of those picks that I would not have thought of. That's a children's film, but so much more.
Yeah.
What are movies to you guys that have affected you that are children's films by definition? But
You mean in your adult life? So.
Yeah, in your adult life, I suppose.
I see. Well, I really love Wallace and Gromit. Not necessarily, not because they're profound in any way, but the opposite almost, that they're just kind of light and really well made and charming. In sort of on the same level as Jim Henson. I really appreciate Jim Henson's intelligence and sort of wisdom that you just feel through his work, that it's not about blowing you away with like the super effects or anything like that. It's really just like he tells kind of a cheeky, he's good at making kind of making you snicker while you're, it's like there's levels of story being told, and so the intelligence, it's kind of, I get the same thing from, these are more, they're not filmmakers, but like Schultz, the Snoopy, and
The wordplay.
yeah, so it's just like there's a sense of intelligence, and that they prioritize like humanity or something above everything else in their work.
The Thanksgiving special and the Christmas special for Charlie Brown.
Yeah, the Peanuts specials.
They're amazing.
Yeah,
They're
they really
amazing.
are, and they kind of like they stand the test of time. I was gonna say Dr. Seuss as well. Like there's something. I really hated the Lorax because it didn't do justice to what which is kind of inevitable. I mean, it's almost impossible to do a good Dr. Seuss animation without Dr. Seuss doing
Nowadays,
it right
at
now.
least.
Yeah. But even I was looking at the Lorax today at Walmart of all places. I was trying to buy a new camera, and I looked at the original Lorax there on the shelf because, you know, people are interested in it again. And I was just looking at the imagery and comparing it in my mind to the images from the Pixar version. And the Pixar version is so slick, and, you know, that you can tell in his drawing style that he didn't intend for that. You know,
For
that
it
it's
to
not.
look like that,
and
yeah.
I know that they could do it. You know, the right animator could have depicted that story in a less slick way. You know, but it just.
We need more variety in animation because now we're expecting this one thing. We need it to look like Pixar. Where if we like what's the snowman? The snowman? Remember that
Yeah.
short? Wait, like if we had more differentiation in our styles, it'd be great.
Yeah.
And in world animation there is. I mean, there's so much stop motion. There's so many different kinds of like oil painting-esque types of drawings. There's I mean, and the most original American animation I've seen recently was even like a lot of people say, "Oh, you like that movie? Oh, that was gross." Was The Incredible
Mr. Fox?
The Incredible Mr. Fox?
Yeah.
Because it just was offsetting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable and it felt real. It felt like just like a
Well,
little.
you could tell he was, you know, he was trying to address that sort of aesthetic issue in the making of that film. He was holding on to the past a little bit, not being like, we don't have to always be like the newest, hottest, slickest animation style. But as narratives go, it wasn't my favorite of his films. But I did appreciate the gesture. I appreciated where he was going with it. You know?
I'm excited to say that the Children's Festival this year has those different types of animations. Which I'm happy about that. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah. It's sort of a relief from this idea that everything has to be
Pixar.
super slick. Pixar. Yeah.
Well, and just for definition, that Lorax movie is like, it's a Pixar-esque, but it's made by Universal Animation, which is like,
I'm just using Pixar the way we use the word Kleenex.
Exactly. They're like trying to look like that Pixar ultra defined, ultra like every strand of hair, but they lose something that Pixar has, which is heart and humanity and
Wall-E.
and intelligence. And Wall-E, which is like one of the best films of the decade,
Oh my.
which is like this profound masterpiece. But the fact that it happens to be a gorgeous piece of animation and it's like, it looks like real life is besides the point. It's not what's endearing to me about that film. It's the heart, it's the soul, and it's the screenplay of that
Like
film.
we are Wall-E. We are Eve.
So to wrap up, it's been a great time talking about children's stuff. Let's review really quickly the movies that we saw this week, Sav.
Oh, okay.
You saw
Well,
Arbitrage in the theater.
I saw Arbitrage. I biked there. You warned me that I was going to be late, and I did. I arrived late, so I didn't get the beginning of it. And then, as usual, I passed out like halfway through, so I kind of fell asleep. And then I woke up, so I don't know how much of Arbitrage I missed. But what I saw was good. It was definitely a very entertaining film. But I feel remiss to give it too much of a critique, you know? The audience, I mean, the place was packed. It was a full theater, which of course it's a Friday night, but the theater was full. There were people in the theater who were really like into it too, like really reacting to certain lines and certain moments in the film. Susan Sarandon, it wasn't her best role. I didn't think. Did you see it?
No.
Oh, okay. It wasn't her best. I mean, no fault to her. It's just
she doesn't. Everything lately.
She didn't play a major role. She didn't play too big of a role in the film, and she also played an unlikable person.
That's new.
So, I mean, she was. You kind of sided with her, but at the same time, she was sort of this wealthy wife who was, she was kind of portraying she was an alcoholic and sort of a little bit like self-preserving, but a little bit manipulative and so on. So I really love watching Richard Gere. I think he's just great to look at. He's just really kind of maturing well.
Yeah.
I just think, I mean, he always has been kind of perfect looking, but there's something about his appearance on the screen that's just pretty compelling. And it was also compelling in the sense that he did convey this sense of a billionaire, like a modern day billionaire, Wall Street type of guy. You really felt like you were watching a real incarnation of that kind of person. Again, it was a film that seems to be about our times. It was a lot about someone who, was fudging the books in a, big financial organization, and there was like a huge, multi-million-dollar hole in the finances that his daughter discovers, and so then there's this whole tussle between, or like issue between him and his daughter. And in fact, I can play. I have a clip right here of that moment, so maybe I'll play that. Oops.
That's right. You work for me. Everybody works for me.
Come here. Look, please, please. Come here. Just for a second. Sit down.
This is a moment where he basically just like cracks down on his daughter because his whole world is falling apart. Played by Britt Marling. I don't know. Have you seen her in any other films? And it's a Jarecki film. Nicholas Jarecki. Do you know his other stuff? Anyway, I thought it was a really good film. Very, very well made, but very also kind of like a film that might just sort of fall into the annals of film history. It might not be. It's not a film that's just gonna
Good 3-star drama.
Yeah,
Great acting,
yeah,
great performances,
exactly.
a great lead performance, maybe nominated for Best Actor, and that's about it. There's films like that every year where there's a great lead performance. A couple of critics put it on their top 10 of the year list, but for the most part, it kind of just fades away.
Yeah.
Released by a smaller company, usually too, a company that probably is going to fold in about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
It's typical. Every year there's several of those, the Weinstein Company-esque type releases.
Anyway, yeah, I can't really vouch for the film 100%, but I think it was really good. And I tried to go back and watch the rest. I mean, watch it again, kind of, but it just didn't work out. So, but I actually kind of want to watch it again because I did enjoy the film a lot.
So that is Arbitrage. I this week saw 2 new releases on Blu-ray/DVD. The Loved Ones, which just came out last Tuesday, which was the hottest Rotten Tomato metered movie that was being released on DVD. It's an Australian release, and it's a horror film. It's a very strange, it's a very dark film, and it's about about a girl who asks a boy to the prom, and he nonchalantly tells her, "No, I already have a girlfriend." And he has a dark past, though. He was driving along a dirt road with his father one day, and they swerved, avoiding to hit a young man who was walking down the street, crashing into a tree, and his father died. So he's afraid of cars, and he's just a high school student. She asks him to the dance. He says no. He gets kidnapped. His mother doesn't know where he is. His girlfriend doesn't know where he is. But she has a dance of her own planned at her house, and her father takes part in it. They have their own ball. They have their own dance. They have their own songs. He gets his feet nailed to the floor. He's forced to stare at her as she goes through her photo album of other loved ones. People that she's asked who have said no to her, who should have said yes. She carves a heart in his chest, in his entire torso, and pours lemon juice and lye all over his gaping wounds. She screams and laughs in his face, forces him to play her sick, twisted games as his friends and family members try to pick up the pieces of where he is while there's still time to save him. This was a dark, disturbing, crazy film. I was watching it while Zav was doing work on the computer last night. This was a dark, twisted thriller. Yeah. I didn't
even want to watch it.
I was mortified by this film, but I thought it was
films like that.
I thought it was great. I thought it was intense. I thought it was brilliant, bold, funny, sarcastic, and highly watchable. It went past its budget constraints,
it's also, isn't there? Maybe. Well, actually, I was gonna say this is another one of those films where they kind of it's like a reverse thing where the victim becomes a victimizer, kind of like Hard Candy, The Host. I'm trying to think what other ones where it's like, but it's not really. Now that I think
Not
about it,
really,
it's kind of
no.
just like a weird serial killer, or just like
it's a strange dark
new twist on twisted.
Yeah. And it's taken cliches and things that have already been done, and it just sort of warps them and makes them a little more humane, touchable, and realistic. I thought it was top notch. 4-star horror film. Safe, which is the new Statham Lionsgate action film release, which is just so typical of a Statham film released by Lionsgate, where he kills people in the hundreds. I mean, hundreds of people get killed in this movie. Violence, bloodshed, necks cracking, people getting shot everywhere. It's awesome. It's a 3-star action film. If you like this kind of stuff, this is just another entry in the crank high voltage action film genre, but nothing new, nothing spectacular, nothing mind-blowing. Great action film, however. And that's what I got for you this week on reviews for My Dinner with Gabe. I'm Gabe Van Handel.
I'm Zad.
And we had Kristen
Peterson.
on the show to talk about the children's section of the Milwaukee Film Festival.
Thank you.
This was a great show. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a great, very entertaining, very fun, very informative show. We hope you liked it as well. We'll see you next week. Thanks.